Welcome back to a little bit of cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius. I'm here with Sam Douglas. We are back from Lambeau yesterday. We were there for the Packer game. It was kind of a crushing loss. I don't look at it as too bad. We'll get into the whole thing, but I do have my Brewers hat on today because really that's the only positive thing we have to talk about at this point for all the sports that we are talking about. But we'll start it off at the top. We just got back from Green Bay yesterday, and we got some pros and cons for the game here. So Sam, I know you had them recorded on your phone. I will go through and we can kind of go one by one here. And I will say for viewer discretion, we did not watch this game on TV. So there's probably going to be some things that we have off. We didn't know exactly what was going on during the broadcast. We don't know what was said over that. We didn't see any specifics, maybe a couple of highlights on our phone, but we saw it in person. So these are the vibes, and these are our takeaways that we got from sitting right behind the Detroit Lions bench, essentially, at Lambeau, which was very cool seats. So shout out to Mama Douglas once again for those seats. They were incredible, and it was an awesome experience. I had a lot of fun with it. But I'll start off with my first pro, and I know Sam had a little bit of disagreement with it yesterday, but he asked what the pros and cons were when we were getting towards the fourth quarter, and it looked apparent that Green Bay was going to lose that game. And I said, and the first thing that came to my mind for a pro, which I didn't have a lot of pros at that point, was I said I thought the offensive line played well. And I'll kind of add to this point, Green Bay actually had more yards than Detroit by a long shot, where Green Bay had 411 yards of offense. Detroit had only 261 yards of offense. Josh Jacobs had a very good day on the ground, 95 yards on 13 carries, a 7.3 average. The run game was working, and no sacks allowed. So I think the offensive line did their job. I think they gave Love and the running game the opportunity to succeed, and I don't think a lot is on them. So I have that as my first pro. Now, Sam, I know you tried to argue it a little bit yesterday. I'll give you another opportunity today on the pod.
Zero sacks. Jacobs had good efficiency. The numbers look all right. And like you said, the offensive line did their job. I just think we're at a point where we want to be a team where we need to see a little bit more from the offensive line. When that was mentioned, we were standing there with 4.5 minutes left in the game, and we had 6 points on the board at the time. I just don't see how that's equatable to the offensive line crushing the game.
Oh,
Coming
yeah.
into the week, I wanted us to dominate the ball. I wanted us to dominate possession. That's longer possessions. That's really controlling the game. And obviously, there was the interception, the pick six was huge. That's not really on the offensive line. They did their job. They did their job. I'll back off a little bit from yesterday, but if we're looking for excellent play, I do think that there's a little bit more to be desired. Just giving up zero sacks, not messing up is good. We
Yeah.
want to be great, and when we're playing the Lions, you got to be great.
Yeah, yeah. I just that was the pro that I had because there weren't really a lot of them. I'll kind of go through the line here. I'll give because we did five each for both of us. So I did five pros and five cons. You did five pros and five cons. And I know when we got towards the end of our pro list, it was getting a little bit of thin, a little a little bit thin when we were getting there. Uh, for other pros, I have Jaden Reed. I think he was effective this game. He had over 100 yards once again. He was the big playmaker for Green Bay, getting his job done. I have Love being healthy just for the fact that he was out there on the field. I didn't see any concerns that he was being hindered all too much. And once again, this is what I was seeing live. We couldn't see if he was stepping a little bit wrong one way because there's a lot going on when you're catching the game live. But I think from what I saw from the stands, I was happy to see that Love was healthy. He was moving in and out of the pocket, is able to get the throws off. And really, and we'll get to the cons. Love was not bad except for really one play. And we'll get to that a little bit later. I think he had an okay day, and I think it's good to see him healthy. Uh, Josh Jacobs, a couple of good runs. You saw him rip one off in the first half there, over 30 yards. Very nice to see him be explosive. I think he had a very good day on the ground. You love to see that. And I think Tucker Kraft looked good once again, and that's both in pass blocking and getting the first downs when need be. And he's just efficient. I think he's one of the better players on this offense. That's what I have for my five pros. Sam, I know your five were a little interesting when we went over them yesterday. I do want you to elaborate when you go through them, but your five pros that you had.
I had a little bit of trouble deciphering the some of these pros and cons this morning, I'm gonna be honest with you. We did sneak a little bit of fireball into the game as it goes at Green Bay. It was a cold, rainy day, got to stay warm somehow.
Yeah.
And the shorts I brought wasn't gonna do it. So
Sam's
my pro
preparation for the game. He didn't remember long pants, but he remembered a bottle of Fireball.
staying ahead of the game, baby.
He was ready for something. I don't know if he was ready for the rainy day, but he was ready for something.
Starting off the pros list, like you said, we were kind of slim pickings here. Lambo is fantastic. Love Lambo. It's
Yeah.
a great time. Everybody there is friendly. It was just a great time. Lambo's fantastic. That's number one pro. Number two pros, we were there. Speaking of Lambo being fantastic, there was $8 doubles. You just don't see that at a football stadium. Big
Well, it
pro.
was outside the stadium. It was at one of the restaurants out there near Titletown. And we were there pretty early for the game. I think we rolled up like 11:30-ish, so it was probably the early specials. I know those $8 doubles turned into $10 doubles pretty quick too, but yeah, I'd say that was definitely a positive for some
That they
pregame
do. As far
purposes.
as a cold, rainy day
Yeah.
outside goes, fantastic experience. Shout out to Cody, Tony, and Kevin for making it out.
It was a
That was
great
awesome.
day.
Couple other pros. It was rainy out, and we're gonna get to the drops here soon on the cons, and as we get into more. Christian Watson made a few of the catches. I didn't see much struggle with him. He had a few hand catches where it was like nice outreach
Yeah.
hands. I was impressed. As far as the rainy day goes, everybody was having trouble catching the ball. I'm not out on Christian Watson yet. I do still want to see him be a part of this offense and get 6, 7 targets
The
every single week.
stat line for Watson, I do have it
Yeah.
pulled up here. 3 catches, 37 yards is what he had yesterday.
And it looked like, other than Jaden Reed, he looked like our most efficient pass catcher. I am loving Tucker Kraft. There wasn't much passing attack going on in general, between the drops. But I did like with the little bit of Christian Watson that we saw. Routes look good, hands look good. That's one other pro. Wilson, linebacking crew needs a little bit of help. Wilson did make a couple good plays. Again, when you just see him showing up over and over and over again, that's the tackle maker you want in the middle of the field. Now, whether those tackles need to be happening at the line of scrimmage or 7 yards past the line of scrimmage, different conversation. Just love to see him getting more involved.
Yep.
Last pro I had, just want to double, just a 10-point game. I mean, it didn't look fantastic. We didn't get smoked. It was a pick six that was really the difference maker here. We know the Lions are a buzzsaw, and we played them all right. We split the series with them last year. I think we look to do that again this year.
As bad as the game felt going through it, the fact it was only a 10-point game, I do definitely take as a positive. Like the
Mhm.
amount of mistakes that Green Bay made, it shows you that when they are right, these two teams can be right there along with each other. And of course, without Evan Williams, without Jair Alexander, you're shorthanded coming into this. You're coming with a quarterback who had a little bit of an injury last week. Like Detroit, and I see all these post game press conferences and these interviews where they're trying to make it seem like they're the underdog coming in there. They're like, we're the dome team. We're not supposed to play outside. And like, you guys are the number one team in the NFC. Like, Detroit is that good. And they solidified it yesterday. Jared Goff, 18 for 22 passing. He didn't have to do a whole lot. He did his job. But the run game, what they got going with Montgomery and Gibbs, they got Sonic and Knuckles there too. The yin, the yang, they got it all. And they really dominated. And I think that's going to show up here in our cons list as I'll pull up the five that I had. Getting right there. Is the cons list I had. The pass rush. First off, for Green Bay, there was not a whole lot of push. You had one sack over the course of the day, and they didn't have to throw a whole lot, but you needed a big play like that, especially when you were down. And I don't know if that was a lack of blitzing. I wasn't taking into account the schemes and what Hafley was trying to bring in terms of blitzing, but they just did not bring enough pressure. Goff was too efficient. You didn't force him to make any questionable throws. Like that, there were no balls that I think Green Bay really had an opportunity to intercept, and that's because Goff had time to sit, pick, and find his guys. The red zone defense is terrible. They had a wide open hole that Gibbs scored that touchdown on. It was awful. The
How
touchdown
did that
catch,
how does that happen on 4th and 1 where you can just go straight?
embarrassing.
I
It,
don't
it
get it.
was it was disgusting. I like it was. I didn't watch the tape. I don't know what players it was, but as a unit, they got fooled. And it was right. It was a run right up the middle that they were able to take into the end zone on 4th and 1 in the red zone. Terrible. That it's inexcusable. And then the touchdown catch by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Terrible defense on the outside. Like it just Detroit was able to do what they wanted. The red zone defense is bad. Dontavion Wicks, I have as a negative. He had 0 catches for 0 yards yesterday, and he had quite a few opportunities. Of course, the big touchdown drop is the one that I remember pretty vividly as well, where it makes Love's stat line look the 0 touchdowns. I can't remember. It's probably about a year since Love has gone a game without throwing a touchdown. He should have had one. It was right in his hands, slipped through. You can say it's the rain, it's whatever, but this has been a problem for Wicks all year and just did not have a good game. He was open, but he wasn't making the plays. The bad throw by Jordan Love, the pick six on a screenplay, just can't let that happen. Maybe Zach Tom was in his way. Maybe he couldn't see, but there were 4 defenders in that area. It just wasn't the throw to be made. The execution on the play was not there, and Love forcing a ball where it shouldn't have been at a very crucial moment where you could not have a turnover. You're trying to go down and at least get a field goal at the end of the half, and then just giving 7 points to Detroit changed the entire complexion of the game, and I think is the biggest reason as to why Green Bay lost. And then my final con that I have is the missed kick, which I'm not going to give too much flack to Brandon McManus, but a 46-yarder. You want to call him automatic from that sense. He wasn't. He missed a kick. In a 10-point game, field goal can be pretty big. And he missed another kick. So those are my 5 cons.
Got to make those kicks. It was a gross day out on that field. It
Yeah, it
was
was.
raining and it was getting cold and there was wind. So I think that we only only seeing one missed kick is, maybe a good thing from everybody. Solid stuff, from the holders to snappers. Speaking of the snappers, I think we had like 4 or 5 bad snaps.
It was
That's
bad.
my first none. I get it's rainy, and I just gave an excuse to the kickers. That's a little bit different than hiking the dang ball. That's elementary. As elementary as stuff in the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1. So as elementary as catching a touchdown pass when you need it against the Lions at home in a big division game. Um, that's one. Next con, they were playing without Jameson Williams. This Lions team should have been a little bit more approachable. Now we didn't have Jair back there, so each team had a little bit of issue going on outside. Seeing them without Jameson Williams, and they still crushed it. They were able to do whatever they want. We never had them playing our game. We were playing their game the entire time, and that's a little bit of something I talked about last week. Is heading into this, we needed to control the game a little bit, and there was no control. We couldn't stop them when we needed to stop them, and they were missing one of the most dynamic offensive weapons, I think, in the NFL. I don't think he's quite used like that. But whether it's taking the top off the defense or just making adjustments, they were down there number one wide receiver, and we still had zero answers to this offense.
Number 2 wide receiver.
Sorry?
Number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah,
Williams is not a number 1, but yes, they
um,
didn't have the top. Yeah.
Linebacking core got to step up as a unit. I
Mhm.
like what Eric Wilson is doing. I love the progression. Don't get me wrong. Quay's got to start being really good at football here soon. I'm not sure what this linebacking core, is doing as a unit that's good. It feels like every time we're making contact with one of these running backs on a day they ran it 32 times when you knew it was going to be a run heavy game. Why are they averaging 5.5, 6 a carry? That was just sad.
Yep.
Catching, same thing. Drops. Wakes had a big drop, whether it's Jordan Love catching a snap or the entire wide receiving core. We gotta catch these balls. Goff was 18 for 22. That type of efficiency wins you games. Jordan Love completes 5, 6 more passes that should have been caught by this wide receiving core. I get it's a young wide receiving core. Everybody's super excited about him. Like I said earlier, we can't be a good team anymore. We got to be doing great things. Last con I had is kind of the Jordan Love pick six. I watched. I'm not sure. Did you see the Chris Olave injury?
I did not. I heard that Michael Thomas blamed it on Derek Carr, though, on Twitter. I know that
So
was a
it's
whole
one of
thing.
those that I think I've heard referred to, at least Tom Brady referred to as a hospital ball. You're throwing a high ball over the middle where the safety's waiting and the corner's on his hip, and you know that you're setting your receiver up for failure. That's
Which
what
Brady was notorious for those too, so it's kind of funny. But
I think he liked to put it low, like, and so like Adeline, that's what he said. Like when it gets high, those high catches,
mhm.
that's where things get a little bit more dangerous for everybody. And that's exactly what happened with Olave. That's where Michael Thomas is coming from. Now, I don't know about the relationship. I don't want to get too much into that. But where I'm going with this is that's a play that a good quarterback, throws. I'm sure it was a decent ball. Jordan Love is playing like a good quarterback. He's playing like a Derek Carr. He might have a job in the league for 10, 15 years playing like this, but if we want to get where we want to get, we need efficiency up. We need that pick six to not happen. We need these interceptions, these bad balls. They got to be done. I don't if you're dumping and diving 4 or 5 yards every single play, that's fine with me. You can't make these brutal mistakes. You can't be a Derek Carr when we're trying to go to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, it's Jordan Love is going to be held to a standard. He's a $260 million man. He continues to have at least it feels like one of these a game where it feels bad, and Green Bay was fortunate where they had a pretty easy schedule up to that point where a big interception like that wasn't really going to influence the game all that much to the point where Green Bay lost because of it. But this one did. You have to be very fine when it comes to playing a team as good as Detroit. And you said it correctly. You can't just be good. To beat guys like this, to go to the Super Bowl, you have to be great. You have to clean up those things. And when you talk about the linebacking core, it was bad. Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch, like I said, the entire tape. Wilson had a couple of nice plays. You saw Cooper get in on a couple as well. Quay Walker just he's not coming up. He's not being a playmaker. We haven't really seen him be a playmaker really in his career yet. I'm kind of out on him. That conversation is going to come up a little bit later in the show, but really where it comes down to it, this is a 6-3 football team. You are going into a bye week. You are third in the division because Minnesota now won yesterday. They beat a bad Colts team, which whatever. I don't see Minnesota being in contention over Green Bay at the end of the season. Losing Christian Darrisaw is huge for them, and I think Darnold is going to get exposed a little bit. I think the roster is not as deep as they would like for it to be in positions where you want youth. They don't have a whole lot of youth, and I don't expect Minnesota to stay there. But there are a lot of positives to take away for Green Bay right now. Like you can't overreact and say that this season is getting to a bad dark place because it's not. Because Detroit is that good of a team. Not that losing is good or losing is okay, but this one it's not one that I was expecting for them to win. Especially not a healthy secondary. You're playing an offense that has been perfect for the last 4 weeks of the season. And the way that Goff has those guys going, you saw it yesterday. You have to come up and make a play. They didn't give themselves the opportunity to even make a play. And I think that all starts up front, which I don't know where Green Bay wants to go. I think the trade deadline is tomorrow. So I'm sure that there are talks in progress right now. I'll bring it up later. I'll save that conversation for a bit. But this team is 6-3. Your quarterback played a perfect second half last year. I expect these guys to pick it up. I think there's a lot of fun to be had for the rest of this season for Green Bay. I'm not too disappointed in the loss. There are the fine things that we talked about, but it's a 10-point loss to, I think, who is the best team in the entire league. So you take it as it is. It was a sloppy weather. It was a sloppy game. You just clean these things up. That's why this is a regular season game. And that's where this game is kind of sitting with me. And as you said, going to Lambeau, just a great experience overall for us. I had an incredible time. So I'm happy today. What all happened yesterday? Yeah, of course you want the Packers to win, but I'm not taking this as a huge, disappointing, sad loss that we need to start getting too frustrated about.
Bye week is coming up. We got a bye next week. I think it's a great time for the bye. We're gonna take a week off, and then we come back. We got a couple tough games, but I think they're manageable games. I think we got the Bears, and we got 49ers, and the Dolphins, and then we see Detroit again. So it's a great time to have a week off. get some stuff together, clean some small things up. And
Mhm.
that's really what this team needs to do, whether it's the catching, whether it's the drops, whatever it may be, whether it's, just getting a little bit of penetration. Somebody can smack Rashawn Gary upside the head and get him to start playing some good football.
Yeah.
There's just some small things that I think a bye and a beatable Bears team can give us some confidence going forward. Because 49ers, Miami, Detroit, those are going to be three tough games.
Yeah, I think so as well. The Chicago had a rough one yesterday against Arizona. I didn't really see it looking that bad, but they're going to hit a stretch here. They're going to go through some growing pains. I'm not worried about Chicago going forward as much. I think when we all still see the talent that Caleb Williams has, that team just the offensive line was horrendous in that Arizona game, and bad loss for them. Minnesota with the win. So it's Detroit at the top, Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago. And I think there's still a lot of things that can happen. I think a lot of things that can happen in Green Bay's favor. So not a terrible NFL Sunday. It was good. It was good. I think that's where we can sit on this Monday. We can look back to Saturday now. The Badgers a 42-10 blowout loss against the Hawkeyes. Not a whole lot of if we did a pros and cons list for this game, I don't
It would be
know
a
if
cons list.
it would be a cons list. I mean, Braden Locke was 15 for 29, 137 yards. He had the one touchdown, two interceptions again. Continues to make those mistakes. Tawi Walker was bottled up a little bit. He had 16 carries for 52. That's good for a 3.2 average. The defense got tired at the end of the game. Iowa's was able to do whatever they wanted on offense. They only had to throw the ball. It was only 10 times that Brennan Sullivan had to throw the ball. He was 7 for 10, 93 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed for 58 yards and a touchdown. But Caleb Johnson, their star running back, looked like the superstar. Wisconsin was really outmatched at Iowa on Saturday.
7 points in the second half. Again, what's going on in the second half that we can't move the football? It was all game here. I mean, we only put 10 on the board, three in the first quarter, seven in the last. But this Badgers team, they weren't playing a world beater in Iowa. Iowa's not all that. They were two 5-3 teams coming into this,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a battle to be mediocre, and we got blown out. So something's gotta be going on here. This fickle system has got to be talked about at some point. And I don't know. I think you got to run the course of the year. This Badgers team was founded on being really solid across probably 10 out of the 11 positions on offense, and always having a mid quarterback, but the offensive line was always great. The running back was always taken care of, usually had an X and a Y that can make a play. And now it looks like we're trying to force something that just isn't our style of ball. So the whole system has got to get reworked. I'd rather have a struggling quarterback who has to throw it 10 times a game and win these tough games that we can in the Big Ten, because everybody's good. Everybody has a shot. You're gonna see Michigan. You're going to see Ohio State. Play these guys good. Get yourself in the playoff. And I think the Badgers can be there. But right now, what we're doing is not it. There's got to be a philosophical change to this Badgers program.
There's got to be something. And the tweet that I saw, and I think it's kind of how a lot of fans are looking at this now, where Wisconsin was for a long time, and this is under Christ, under Anderson, under Bielema, you had essentially everything. It felt like it was taken care of, like you said, except for quarterback, where maybe that's really all that they needed to fix, which I'm still going to sit at the point where I think Fickle is right for this program when it comes to the recruiting sense because they weren't able to recruit a quarterback. I think Fickle's going to give you a much better opportunity to go and recruit some of these top players in the nation that they hadn't been able to do at any point. Where the problem comes in is once again, I believe it's the scheming, but there is a mentality thing here. Like you can't, like you said, only 7 points in the second half when you're fighting and clawing and trying to come back against a team that you know is only running the ball and just a lack of execution. That there is something missing, and you're right. But yes, it is definitely going to come into question at this point, which can slow the brakes a little bit. You're almost through 2 seasons of Fickle, And we'll talk about this in a little bit as well, I think. But it's disappointing. That's the team that I had Wisconsin going in and winning. You wanted to see a little bit of fight. You wanted to see some things turn around, and they just fell flat on their face against a team that I don't think was that good. So that's where I'll leave that. We got more negativity coming up, shocker here, but the Milwaukee Bucks, another loss on Sunday to Cleveland. Things are not looking good under the Doc Rivers era in Milwaukee. As Sam, you're more the expert here. I'm kind of going to let you take your thoughts into this, but things just not looking good in the Cream City as it stands.
That's a tough game to lose. I talked last week about how the Bucks really need Giannis and Dame to just step forward and assert themselves, start putting up big numbers, and they did. This
Mhm.
Cleveland team is good. Dame hit a very clutch shot with 9 seconds left to give us a 1 point lead. As a team we were up on early, they clawed back. Look, Cleveland's gonna be a top six team. They're not a play-in team. This is a quality playoff basketball team that we played good. Same thing with the Packers. There's expectations here. You got Dame, you got Giannis. We can't be good. We can't give, Donovan Mitchell a game-winning shot. We should be up by 10. When Giannis is dropping, what was it, 34, 16, and 9? Dame shoots
Yeah.
10 for 15 from three, drops 41 points, and that's a game we're losing. I just don't get it. And Taurean Prince was efficient. He's been looking fantastic. The Bucks got to get together. We are playing them tonight. I still have high hopes for this team. I think they're too good. They're
Mhm.
too talented. They're too experienced. There's going to be some conversations. There's going to be some switching around. Got to talk about Bobby Portis here. He's a black hole on offense. He's taking too many darn fadeaways. He's taking too many shots. He's not moving the ball. He doesn't fit in the scheme. You asked me if I would rather have Bobby Portis taking a fadeaway or a Brook Lopez three, and I said a Brook Lopez three, and I stand on that. That's part of the offense that creates spacing, whether it's a high efficiency shot or not. That creates space for Dame. It pulls their center out. It creates
Mhm.
space for Giannis to be a backdoor cutter who is
Yeah.
the best backdoor cutter this NBA's ever seen. It's absolutely incredible what we can do on offense if there's some scheme. If the ball keeps getting dumped into Bobby and he's just taking these little hooks, that's not scheme. That's not good basketball. That's not what this whole process has been founded upon. You need space. Give these guys some space. I look for the Bucks to trade Bobby. I love Bobby. I really do. He's not fitting with this team, and we got to change something. Big game against the Cavs tonight. And then we got a big weekend ahead of us playing the Knicks and the Celtics coming up Friday and Sunday. So really excited for that Sunday game against the Celtics. We're gonna play some good teams. And I think by next week, by the next pod, I think we can be having a very different conversation about the Bucks. But like we talked about with the Badgers, the Packers, and now the Bucks, execution. You got the pieces there. You just gotta do it.
Yeah, I think there is a where I think one of the biggest problems here, of course, you bring up Bobby Portis there's a lot of shots taken where it almost feels like they shouldn't be. And I know my conversation before was somebody needs to step up and be better after Giannis and Dame. You have two greats that played really, really exceptional games. 41 points for Dame. It's 10 for 15. That's like out of this world stuff. And they're not able to win. There's a lack of perimeter defense where Lillard has really lost a step. Like what he's able to do offensively, he's not looking good on defense. Not getting a lot of help from Gary Trent Jr. is at all either. He's not been good either. It's lack of execution. The expectations were much higher. You haven't seen it. I start to look at Doc Rivers here. I don't, which that's all conversation we're gonna have as well. But this team's not where they should be, and they got to be better. And they have some opportunities to do it, but they're gonna play some good teams again. And where do they turn the corner? Because things could get bad here real quick too. Where you look at it, like they could get really bad. They could get really dark. This I hope it's not the start of a scary time for the Milwaukee Bucks, but I think there's the possibility of it. Like this, the roster is constructed and they should be there, but there's a lack of youth, a lack of aggression, a lack of fiery play, and it's just not there. So we'll see if it turns around, but we will shift here. We'll go back to everybody's favorite segment, the cheese grater. So we'll fire back and forth questions, try to make it quick and snappy. First one I have for Sam is, how crucial is a trade for Green Bay? And what do you think it should be?
Got to get a linebacker. Got to get a new face in there. To get some energy on the defense. I'm gonna give this a 8.5 out of 10. Importance. I think it is important again because we need to get better. We're not. We got smoked by the Lions. 10-point game. Yeah, where we want to be. We got to get better. Get some new energy in there. I'm gonna write one down because I know you're worried about the Bucks. Are you worried about the Bucks? Cody's worried about the Bucks. Who's the next NFL coach to get the boot after Dennis Allen got
Ooh.
fired today?
Oh, there is the next NFL coach to get a boot. I really, I got to think about this. Kind of on a hot seat. I mean, Salah's already fired. Allen got fired. Mike McCarthy, which I don't know if Jerry Jones will pull the trigger, but Dallas is like that's. I think it should be Mike McCarthy. This team is they're bad. They're bad. And I think Mike McCarthy is one of the big reasons as to why they have fallen on their face anytime that they've walked into the playoffs. And now they're not even a good regular season team anymore either. So that there is such a lack of hope. I don't know when it happens, but I'd be surprised if he's the coach of Dallas in the next 6 months, is where I'll put that. How bad does it get for Doc to be fired?
It would have to get really bad because of the money that they're paying him. They
Mhm.
just signed him to like a big contract, and I think that they trust the system. I think that there's going to be some personnel moving around. I think there's going to be some tough conversations, with the front office and him. But they're locked in with Doc at least through this year. I don't see Doc moving this year. I like what he's doing, bringing in Rondo. I think that there's a couple other things that they can do to bolster this coaching staff for better or worse. And he's an experienced guy with an experienced team who should be able to figure it out. It would have to get really bad for Doc to get the boot at the end of this year.
Think so as well.
Devin
And three
Williams, we
coaches. Yeah.
Devin Williams, we declined his option. You see this as a good thing. McGill is going to be the new closer. We got young talent. Jackson Churio is only getting better. Mizorowski is a stud in the coming. Are you ready to get hurt again?
Um, what I'll say about this, so Williams is still under contract for 1 year, but all the reports, you can just look up the name Devin Williams, all the reports saying he's getting traded. That's where the market's at. That's where the Milwaukee Brewers are at. They're not going to pay him after this year if they even keep him. It's the same situation you saw with Hader, same situation you saw with Burns. I think if they can get value, they go do it. I think every year as a Brewers fan, you're just ready to get hurt again, is how I'll answer that question. But I'm very excited about this team and some really good news that we'll get into in just a little bit there for Milwaukee as well. But I am ready to get hurt again. I do it every single year. I'll watch 162 games to watch the entire season end in three. So I think it'd be a good thing to trade Williams. I think it will happen, and just hope that they can get and maximize the value out of that trade. Uh, how far is Wisconsin football away from success? Like, you can give a time period, you can give a what needs to happen. How distant is this team from where they want to be?
3 years. It's we got to get some people in. We got a young team right now. I don't see us very close right now. I need to see a philosophical change. I don't think what we're doing right now is working with the people that we have. Locally in Wisconsin, we got to get some more linemen in. We got to get the running game going. Get back to the foundation of Wisconsin football. Big Ten's getting really, really good.
Mhm.
And I just don't see the way that these Badgers are working that they're going to be a one-loss team anytime in the next couple of years. So we're a whole recruiting class away from getting it done.
Yeah.
A little more than halfway through this Packer season. We're sitting at 6-3. What's our record at the end of the year?
I got them at 11-6, I think. So 5-3 the rest of the way. I think that's very doable. And I think that's a good record for football. Like, the NFL is tough, man. You can go in and lose to a bad team as well. You just lost to a really good team. I think Green Bay's solid. There's a lot of things to be excited about. To see them play a close game like that and be within 10 points, like against the best team where you just played sloppy the whole game, you clean up one or two of those mistakes, we have a different conversation today. This is a good team. See him losing a couple of games though, but I do see Jordan Love really picking it up. I think it's going to be an exciting second half the rest of the way. So we have a new segment actually that I wanted to do, and I we are going to name it the Munster of the Week. And I'm sorry we don't have just one Munster. I got two Munsters for this week. And I have Bryce Terang and Sal Frelick. Of course, they didn't play, but they were just awarded gold gloves. Very deserving for both of them. I was expecting actually for Blake Perkins to get recognized before Sal Frelick did, but Frelick deserved it just as much. Which the only thing that I had for Perkins there is he robbed 5 home runs and tied the all-time single season record for that, which was crazy. But if Bryce Terang didn't win that, it would have been a Rob job and we would have had to riot. But those are my two Munsters of the week.
My Munster of the week. It took me 4 seconds to think of this Munster. Did you see what Saquon Barkley did? Oh my Lord, what is that? One juke, a spin move, an off balance, a backwards hurdle, moving forward. This guy's unbelievable. I think
Yeah.
I mentioned it yesterday. I saw the hit when he was hurdling somebody at Penn State and he got hit midair and he didn't move. The defender bounced off him. I knew this kid was a stud. He's 27 for 159 yesterday with another 40 yards catching, 2 touchdowns. Saquon's the Munster of the week for me. This guy's awesome.
True
He's
Munster.
putting himself in the MVP conversation. If the Eagles can keep winning, they're 6-2 now. I don't like Nick Sirianni. I'm not a huge fan of these Eagles, but Saquon is kind of the dude.
Yes, I agree. A true Munster. There you have it,
Yeah.
your Munsters of the week. Now for our headline predictions for next week. I'll let Sam take this one off here. We're gonna make it and pivot it to a Bucks and during the Packers bye. So Sam, your Bucks headline prediction for next week.
Bucks are back. Pretty easy enough. I think that we are seeing the Knicks and the Celtics this coming weekend. Those are going to both be primetime games. Bucks are back, so that's what I like to see going into next week. I think we're going to go 3-1 this week. I bet we're going to win tonight against the Cavs. We're going to lose a really dumb game to the Jazz, who might be the only worst team in the NBA other than us. And then we're going to step it up because that's what doesn't make sense enough to happen for this Bucks team.
I have the Bucks skid continues. Giannis trade talks intensify. I think that they're on a horizon of some dark places. Like some things really have to change. Well, is 1-5 right now? Is that the record? And you're
Yep.
about to play three really tough games again this week. So this could very easily be 2-8. Like very easily be 2-8. I see them beating Utah, which you predict a dumb loss there, but I see some things starting to kind of roll on the honest trade talks. I know some articles were released already a week and a half into the season, which I mean, whatever. But if this team is 2-8, I promise you there will be articles, there will be talks intensifying if that were to happen. So I just exceed my expectations, Milwaukee, and then I'll start to see things a little bit differently. But right now, not impressed. So go and impress me. And Sam, you're predicting for them to impress.
Waiting for it. They're too good not to. Giannis ain't going anywhere. I hear the talks all the time. This guy, he's a Milwaukee legend. He's not going anywhere. If they might do some radical stuff to the lineup, unless Giannis demands it, which I don't see him doing. He's too much of a homebody. He loves
Yeah.
Milwaukee. Giannis ain't going anywhere. I think the trade talks are hilarious. My socks will be knocked off if anything happens. But
Yeah. Oh, I think everybody's would in that sense. Well, my name is Cody Depius. I'm your host. That's Sam Douglas. It's another great week. Is hope we can be a little bit happier next week for our Monday show, but we'll be back on Thursday. This has been another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.